is it? International standards for free and fair elections? Does it exist?
Well, free and fair elections, that's a very, very overused phrase. And in the early days, of course, everybody was looking for free and fair elections. Maybe in a more modest way, we should ask, in our days of Iraq, what were we trying to achieve? We weren't trying to achieve free and fair elections, although that would have been fabulous. What we, I think, defined it as is more credible elections. So we had the elections last time, so let's make them better this time. And I think that's what we should be aiming for in every case. Free and fair elections, I think it starts from the very basis of the UN Declaration of Human Rights, where it actually mentions in there, in one of the articles, that in order for a country to be truly democratic, it should have adopt a constitution, a good legal framework, and there should be universal suffrage, and there should be regular elections, not just elections every now and again, regular elections, so over a 4-year or 5-year term, depending on what the constitution says. So then you examine the legal framework, and what does that legal framework tell you? Well, I think it should cover a number of things in terms of an election law. It should cover the fact that there is equal access to the whole of the election process by people who want to compete in the election, so that there shouldn't be the incumbent who gets all the publicity, for instance. It should be equal access to the media, the level playing field that we all talk about. The incumbent shouldn't be using government property to hold meetings or government vehicles to run around, his or her supporters. Mm-hmm. So I think a level playing field should be in the election law. In addition, it should state that everybody who is over a certain age is able to vote and take part in the elections, and also be candidates at the election. Generally speaking, anybody who's 18, and provided they register to vote, is able to vote in most countries. There are some countries where it's still 21. I think in the Middle East, you'll find that some of the voting age is at 21. But the vast majority of countries, use 18 as the age. And I think the election law should include issues like having the voter register. That's regularly updated. It should include issues relating to the media, where the media should be able to freely report and take part in the election process. The law also should contain information on how the polling takes place, where the polling takes place, and how the counting is done, whether the counting is undertaken in the precinct, or whether the ballot papers are taken to a central place to be counted for the whole of the country, or whether the ballot papers are taken to a district or a regional centre. I think if an election law contains all of these things, then the country is on its way to getting this free and fair tick in the box that the international community likes to give. But then the elections don't finish on election day. People should be able to question the election commission if they don't believe that things have been done properly. And there should be, within this election framework, there should be an ability to challenge the election results and indeed make complaints. And I think if the law has all of those things, we're really on a good road to having free and fair elections. But I believe that having a good election law doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a good election, because you've got to have the will of the people, the will of the government, of all the candidates and the voters to make the election work. And you can actually have a very good election law, but if you don't have that political will, you can have a disastrous election. You can actually, the opposite can take place. You can have a very poor election law, and I've seen many election laws that have been very, very poor in the first instance. But where there's this political will, where everybody wants to make it happen, you can have a fantastic election, despite the fact that your law doesn't contain all of those things that I've just mentioned. But it's in the hearts of the people to actually go out and make the election work, and that's very important.